by training the hips' ability to hinge and stretching out those inner thighs, which allows your hips to hinge better, as well as strengthening the low back and its ability to resist rounding, as well as training the low back's ability to be competent in a rounded position, while also making sure that while stretching your hip flexors, you are strengthening them in that stretched position, allowing them to be less vulnerable in that position. Not only training the hip flexors to be lengthened, but their ability to be shortened as well as training those outer hips, the glute stabilizers, not only the low back itself and what is around the low back is important, but above the low back. By opening up your posture through pullovers, for example, and being able to strengthen the muscles that keep you in that posture, not only is the low back and what is around the low back and above the low back important, but your low back moves laterally side to side as well. So being able to train your back to be competent on either side is important as well, such as just doing as simple as side crunches while standing, or if you have a back extension, you get sideways on the back extension and just train your QLs that way. Or you could get a dumbbell or kettlebell, hold it, and just train one side at a time standing. I believe that if you want to have a strong, competent, flexible, and pain-free low back, you must not only train the low back, but around it and above it. I think that if you want to have a strong, competent low back, you will train your low back through the hips' ability to hinge, which requires your back to resist rounding, but I believe you should also be competent in embracing rounding. I think that the inner thighs and the outer hips are equally as important for low back health as well, considering with tight inner thighs, your back's ability to hinge will be hindered, as well as tight outer thighs will directly affect your low back's mobility and pain level. Above the low back is equally as important. If your shoulders aren't opened up and if your lower traps aren't keeping you in an open posture, that will also put more load on your low back. But your low back is not only front and back and up and down, it is also side to side. So being able to twist or lean one way or the other and be competent doing that, also important. About 3 years ago, I started to develop, it's like 3 or 4 years ago, I started to develop low back pain, which I know many people deal with, and I never dealt with my whole life until about 3-4 years ago. I think it's about 3.5 years ago at this point. And it was not like a general low back stiffness or soreness or anything like that. It was like I was starting to develop a sharp, everlasting pain in my back. And it got to a point, and it developed quickly enough to the point where I generally thought there was like something wrong with my low back. And it got to a point where I was like immobile, couldn't move, and anytime I tried to ride my bike or skate, I couldn't. And I was like genuinely having like a rough time just being physically active, and I got it checked out. I started doing a whole bunch of therapies, stretches, exercises and acupuncture and all those things. Nothing was fixing it, you know. Common fixes online, things like stretch your hip flexors, stretch your back, don't round your back, you know, strengthen your glutes and your hips. Which I would actually say all this advice is true if applied properly. Now, for anyone who has low back pain and you stretch your hip flexors, you start stretching your hip flexors, you know, and or you start strengthening your glutes and your low back, and it fixes it. Cool. You know, for me it did for a little bit. It would be on and off when it would help and when it wouldn't. But you know, my back pain persisted. I got it checked out, and it actually happened to be it's called spondylosis. It's where my disc at my joint, I don't know which joint, I don't know what it's called, but it's the joint that connects to the hips. So that joint, that vertebrae had bone spurs growing on it, like over calcification and like growth on the bone, like extra bone growing on it basically, as well as I had a degenerated disc, which is, you know, I'm too young to have one of those. And because my back pain was like, it would specifically be like kind of, it'd be more like on my left side, like basically like where the tailbone is, but like kind of to the left of it. And no, it was not a tailbone pain, you know, despite the fact that I had bruised my tailbone a few times when I was younger. You know, grew up skating and riding bicycles and, you know, life at the skate park, and you know, as a kid you fall a lot, and I've bruised my tailbone a number of times. Let's stay facing this way. And you know, it's not fun. If you've had a bruised tailbone, you know that you can't do anything. And when I say you can't do anything, I don't over exaggerate. I'm saying you can't move, you can't stand, you can't walk, you can't run, you can't stay still, you can't sit. It just hurts no matter what, and it lasts for weeks, and it's painful, and it's crippling, it's immobilizing. So yeah, I'd bruised my tailbone a bunch as a kid, but other than the bruised tailbones, I'd never generally had the back problems until then. You know, when I got it checked out, and when I got told it was spondylosis, which isn't absolutely confirmed that that's what it was, but when I got the x-ray done, you know, there's a little bit of a difference in my vertebrae on one side versus the other. But I also got told that it was irreversible and that I was gonna just live with it for life. So being told that by a doctor, you know, had me pretty down and had me in a belief of, oh, I'm gonna have to try to maintain this for the rest of my life, you know, because it was affecting my ability to skate and ride BMX, which were my main sports at the time, which I still like to get into. I just haven't done lately. I was in sort of a belief like I'm gonna have to quit my main sports, which that had me pretty down as well, and that's no fun. So I was sitting here with the belief, oh, I'm gonna have low back pain forever. I'm gonna have to do as much as I can to maintain it forever, the rest of my life. I'm young. I shouldn't even have this kind of back problem at my age. But you know, I'm doing all these stretches and exercises and doing acupuncture, and nothing's helping. And meanwhile, like, I'm still skating, I'm still riding my bike, because I'm not gonna stop doing that. But I'm having crippling pain. My performance and my fun is hindered because I have low back pain. You know, while riding a skateboard and BMX bike, you're using a lot of your back. And for me, my back was, I just get to a point where I just, nothing, you know. And I'm trying to take all the advice of, oh, don't round your back, don't, you know, stretch your hip flexors, strengthen your glutes, hamstrings, etc. Which, again, if you apply those properly, I think they should help, because I still do those things to this day, but I no longer have any back pain because I can't say what exactly fixed my back pain, but I started listening to Ben Patrick, Knees Over Toes guy, on YouTube. Go check him out if you haven't, by the way. He could probably explain better how I'm going to tell you how I think I got rid of my back pain than how I might explain it and show. Because he explained the idea that when it comes to fixing low back pain, it's not the idea of stretch, like in our modern society, it's about fixing and balancing out weak links, right? Like, it's a common weak link that people's hip flexors are tight but also weak, and that's why it's a common thing to, you know, because we're sitting a lot, say stretch your hip flexors, which I think that's good advice. Stretch your hip flexors if they're tight. But when he explained back pain the way he did, it really changed my perspective on that in particular, but exercise and balancing out weak links as a whole. So what's the common advice? Well, don't round your low back. You know, don't round your low back to stretch it out. You know, stretch your hip flexors, strengthen your glutes and hips. And I think this is all perfectly valid advice. But if that's all that's told, I think that's pretty limiting, considering there's more factors that go into the low back than just loose front end, strengthen back end. Don't put your back end in a vulnerable position. But I think that actually is a misleading piece of advice, is to don't round your back, which I've started getting into training my low back in many ways, both directly and indirectly, right? Like, if you have knee pain, what are the chances that it's actually not your knee and it's rather like your ankle that's weak, making you put more load into your knee, right? And that could even affect up the chain as well. Low back pain can be caused by many things other than your low back itself. Now, I'm sitting here, believing my back pain is not going to be reversed because, I'm told I have like an actual condition in my low back, which is unhealable, and I'm going to have it for the rest of my life. But I started doing ATG, working out with ATG's exercises, ATG being Ben Patrick's company, and how he refers to his workouts and exercises. I started working out using the exercises that they show, and the principles, more of like the thinking of exercises. And within 2 weeks of just casually doing these exercises, like, I didn't even notice, but when I did notice, was like, I'm not having any more low back pain. It doesn't hurt to squat down, it doesn't hurt to round my back, my low back pain's gone. And how long has that been? A couple of years now? Yeah, about a couple of years, a little less than 2 years now. I've been doing just purely ATG, and about a little less than 2 years now I've been doing purely ATG, and ever since then my low back pain has been put completely into remission. And now the idea is that in order to reverse that low back pain and have a strong and capable low back, is you gotta train all aspects of not only your